we are all here, I believe, because we are not interested in sense gratification, but we are interested in self-realization, in spiritual advancement. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You all came here voluntarily, I believe, unless someone was forced on the gunpoint to come here, which I don't think is true. And so you chose to be here rather than in some bar or club or pub or whatever. But we know how rare it is, right? That millions of people are making the opposite choice. And so we're living in this age which is filled with unlimited troubles inside and outside. And Srila Prabhupada talks in the purport of mental disorders. And actually such things like anxiety and depression are threatening to be the biggest diseases of the 21st century. And so we can understand that the only solution to all these problems is spiritual development. And to a greater or lesser degree, those of you who practice for a long time to greater degree, and those of you who are practicing less to lesser degree, you all have this experience, right? That spiritual life is beneficial. And it can counteract all these demonic tendencies. Of course, in this day and age, it's very hard, almost impossible to find real demons as they described in Vedic scriptures, right? Because according to, for example, Bhagavatam definition, demon is one who hates Krishna to such an extent that he wants to kill him. So it's pretty hard to find these kind of people nowadays, right? And really powerful. Yeah. I was thinking before before the smartphones became popular, there were phones with kind of editing program T9. Many of you might remember that.
The dictionary.
Yes, and so when you text, it kind of edits words automatically, right? And then I often kind of notice that you try to type Hare Krishna, but it types hate Krishna, and so if you're not careful, you may send someone the text hate Krishna instead of Hare Krishna, right? So I was thinking that, this is a typical of demoniac mentality, because demons are hating Krishna, so you say Hare Krishna, they respond hate Krishna. And there was one demon described in Bhagavatam who really hated Krishna. His name was Shishupal, right? So he was always thinking of Krishna, but with hate, so, which is the opposite of what we're trying to develop, love. So we can understand these two things are there, hate and love, and we can see that if people ignore Krishna or hate Krishna, whatever case might be, that they end up hating themselves, because everyone's connected with Krishna, and so we ignore Krishna, we ignore ourselves, or ignore God, ignore ourselves. And therefore we can understand that Krishna consciousness or spiritual development is the prime solution. And I want to dedicate some time to interaction. Maybe some of you could share if you felt, okay, let's see how many of you are chanting Hare Krishna on regular basis. Okay. So how many of you are feeling that you are getting benefit from that practice? Quite obvious, otherwise you wouldn't be doing that. But let's see what kind of benefits or what changed, we can say, what changed in your life since the time you started chanting Hare Krishna. You know, it's just, Prabhupada was saying that Krishna consciousness is scientific. It's not a belief, right? It's not, okay, you do something and then you believe that something, hope for something happen. No. It's you start chanting Hare Krishna and things start happening right away. Things do change in life, and the proof, my spiritual master says that proof of existence of God is devotees of God, right? Those who are connected to Him. And so each of your lives is a proof in itself that Krishna does exist. It's not a fictional character, it's not a myth, right? And so I wanted to ask any of you who like to share what did change in your life since you started chanting Hare Krishna. Maybe you could also introduce yourself.
I'm Christina.
Christina, yes,
Hare
please.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
My heart began to get soft.
Okay.
My heart was very hard as a defense mechanism, I guess. Also, that was something very quick that I realized. Also, maybe also my tolerance, and I was able to tolerate people more and forgive people. These were three things that, growing up in New York City, you know, you don't do.
Yeah, not typical here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christina.
No problem.
Wonderful. Anyone else would like to share? Yes, Brooklyn. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Maharaj. I'm Blake, Dr. Blake.
Okay.
One thing I noticed actually was that the things I was doing in life that were affecting me negatively became more apparent when I started chanting, almost to the point where they were affecting me more. So I was more willing to give them up.
Thank you, Blake. Anyone else wants to share? Yes.
Hare Krishna. My name is Glitteria. Glitteria.
Nikedia.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I saw physical, I guess, manifestations or changes in the sense that my eating patterns are different, or I don't crave to eat certain types of food, and I eat a lot less. My sleeping patterns have gotten better, and I don't have certain urges that I used to have.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Nikedia.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to share? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Savannah. I've noticed my inner peace has just blossomed since I've started chanting constantly. Definitely my eating habits. I don't crave certain things at all. I don't even miss them. And my clarity of how I see, the empathy I see how other people see. So I understand why they feel how they feel or why they think how they think. But it's good to have that clarity in my head of seeing different and understanding that it's different.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. And the lady next to Nikedia?
My name is Elena. Elena.
Okay.
So one of the things that changed is I think I have much less anxiety in my life.
Okay.
On a daily basis.
Okay, thank you, Lena. Prabhu?
Hi, Raphael. What I experience is that when I pass through the bar, when people are having a drink, when people are eating hamburgers or steaks, now I kind of feel like disgusted. I mean, before I was like, I want this. It's exactly what I want. That has changed completely.
Okay, so the taste changed completely. Thank you, Raphael. Anyone else? Yeah. Sometimes, actually, it's a very good exercise, and I'm noticing that the longer people practice, the longer the list becomes of the positive changes also. And yeah, I compiled a list for myself some time ago, and I came to 108 points. And I realized that, I could go on, but I really kind of like the number. So I decided to keep it to 108. Yeah, and so naturally, if you feel that it's so beneficial and it affects positively your life in so many ways, what is the natural kind of desire or inclination?
To share with others?
Yeah, so if it's good, and people do need that because they suffer a lot, right? I come from Russia, and there is a Russian joke. Of course, Russia is pretty famous for drinking, and in the joke, the little boy tells to his mother, "Mommy, why are you getting on Daddy's case for drinking? Just look what kind of miserable face he makes before drinking his glass of vodka." So, and you're adding, you're scolding him. He's already so miserable, and you're scolding him on the top of that, right? So, yeah, I mean, why would people want to, drink poison? Because, alcohol is pure poison, or take drugs or smoke, etc. Nasty smoking and, very unpleasant substances which are so harmful. And, yeah, there are so many, things about them. And why do they take it? Because their life is so miserable, right? And so they make themselves more miserable to kind of counteract the previous misery. So this is what's happening, and really we don't even condemn them in one sense. Oh, these are sinful, like some religious people want to do that. Oh, these are all sinful people and we are all saints and whatever. We don't do that because we understand that people are doing these things because they're living such a hard life. And so that's why it's really important for us to feel compassion and feel sorry for the troubles these people have to go through in life, and try and help them. Try to share something which helps us and naturally would help them. But it's not easy, right? Anyone tried to kind of share Krishna consciousness or introduce Krishna consciousness to others? Anyone had the experience? Okay. How many of you would say it's easy? How many of you would say it's pretty hard thing to do? Okay. Yeah. So we really want to do it. We really want to introduce Krishna consciousness, and we understand it's pretty hard because of so many reasons. But we can see how the founder of our movement, Srila Prabhupada, in whose presence we are, in a sense, because he started that. Those of you who are familiar with the history of this movement, he started the whole global movement of Krishna consciousness from this particular place, right? This is really, really historical place for all the Hare Krishnas. And so being 70 years old, over 70 years, and having no money or no one knew him, and not even having great health, he did what he did. And so he introduced Krishna consciousness to the entire world. And despite of his physical absence, he is no longer with us for more than 40 years. The movement is still going on. And so we can understand he was somewhat different from us in terms of his abilities and spiritual powers, if you will. And I was wondering how many of you would like to learn Srila Prabhupada's secrets of successful mission. Anyone? Okay. It's something which, and of course, I'm kind of biased in that sense because I'm really focused on the first purpose of ISKCON, which is very global. But I think I'm in the right place here because if you want to be global, you cannot choose better place than New York, right? Because it's a global place, and New Yorkers have this global mentality, and we can see that actually, to be fair, that it was Prabhupada's, somehow he knew where he's going, right? He knew what he wanted and he knew where he's going. He came here to New York, of all the places, and he chose Manhattan despite of, having no money, etc., etc. Because somehow he knew if he will convince people here, that's it. That the world will be done, right? That the mission will be accomplished. And it worked. That it was enough for him to convince New Yorkers about the importance of Krishna consciousness. And once they became convinced, they convinced the whole planet. It was actually by the, sacrifice and determination of his New York disciples that Krishna consciousness spread all over the world, right? They went all over, they inspired other people, they went further, so it got up. And so I think this is a really good place to meditate on Srila Prabhupada's secrets of success. Let me have a show of hands. How many of you are New Yorkers, meaning you've been born in here? Okay, good. Few people. So, anyway, if you live in New York, you're already a New Yorker as well. And yeah, I mean, even to survive in this place is pretty hard, right? But it's so demanding, but it's good in one sense, right? Because it kind of trains you in so many things, right? Survival skills. If you survive in New York, you can survive anywhere. Northern Pole, or Arctic, or Sahara deserts, no problem up to New York. And so Srila Prabhupada was quite special personality, but it's interesting that everything can be analyzed scientifically, and the laws of this world and the laws of God are the same. And one of our spiritual leaders sent me one article from one Christian leader or preacher, and maybe he took that from some professional sources, but anyway, he made an article which is called 12 Signs of a Spiritual Entrepreneur. And when I read that, I was thinking, my God, it describes Prabhupada so perfectly, because in a sense, in terms of entrepreneurship, which you do not necessarily think in relation to religious organizations, entrepreneurship is something which is like strange, right? But actually, if you think about it, that yes, America is no doubt the most powerful country on the planet because it is very practical. That America thinks money-wise, right? And money has amazing power. Of course, if you use that power in the wrong way, you get wrong results. So, yeah, money is the root of evil if it is used for evil purposes, but the same money can be used for good and even spiritual purposes as well. And so this is what it means to be spiritual entrepreneur. Be very practical and think money-wise. And actually, if you know his life history, he was a businessman before he started his movement. And actually, he used his business experience for incorporating ISKCON, right? ISKCON is spiritual corporation, we can say, and making it, very practical, and that's why ISKCON survives through thin and thick. And so I wanted to read the article, but then I also wanted you to kind of reflect on that, which I think would help. What's our time frame normally? How much do we have for the class?
7:15, 7:30.
Okay, so we have maybe 45 minutes. Okay, yeah, that should be quite good. Anyway, I'll kind of skip the beginning of the article wherein is described that spiritual entrepreneurs are different breed of people, and they are often misunderstood in the church or religious organization because they don't fit the pattern. They kind of misfits. But these people are change makers. These people can achieve something no one can achieve, right? And he says that normally religious organization or church is consisting of shepherds and who else? And kind of pastors, chaplains, shepherds and chaplains, which probably would be same like managers and preachers, right? Something like that. So, those who are officially on the mission, they say what they have to say and they do what they have to do, right? So shepherds and chaplains or managers and preachers. So, but spiritual entrepreneurs are different from that. We can say that everybody else is thinking within the box, and spiritual entrepreneurs are definitely people who think outside of the box. And So the very first and really striking sign of spiritual entrepreneur is think big, big thinking. And he says that too many churches die of small thinking, and he gives the examples of small thinking. We don't have enough. It will not happen. Stop dreaming. Or, as some of you might heard, stop speculating. Right? That's plenty for now. And the most common, who will pay for it? And so leaders who serve an infinite God should never have their imaginations deadened by small thinking. Spiritual entrepreneurs aren't. They think big, they dream of what could be, not what is, and they see the opportunity in every obstacle. So anyone can think of Prabhupada's example in terms of big thinking. Anyone wants to share? Anyone remembers any examples of his big thinking? Thinking big.
I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that he planned out Gitanagari farm before he came to the US.
Yeah, he planned so many things. He was like dreaming of the global spiritual movement, and he meditated on it so hard before he came. He envisioned it in every single detail to such an extent that Radhanath Maharaj shared an interesting fact that an article was discovered which was an interview Srila Prabhupada gave before boarding Jaladuta ship in Bombay, or maybe it was in Calcutta anyway, one of those places. And basically, the reporter was asking him, so Swamiji, why do you want to go to America? What are you going to do there? You know, America for many Indians is like the land of dreams, etc. But you know, what the old man will do there. And Prabhupada said, well, I'm a leader or the head of big spiritual institution and organization or movement, and I have so many disciples in America, thousands of disciples. And upon my arrival, they will organize a preaching tour for me all over the country, and after I finish preaching in America, they will organize my global travels and spreading of Krishna consciousness. And as we know, at that time, Srila Prabhupada didn't know a single person in America, right? What to speak of disciples and everything. So was he out of his mind? Of course not. Because his meditation was so intense. It was a reality for him before it manifested. And actually it manifested because he desired that so strongly, right? So thinking big and a very, very intense desire. That's, I would say, Srila Prabhupada's secret of success number one. And actually he was even saying that, you know, my only problem in life was I could never think small, right? I was always thinking big. And yeah, you could ask yourself, what is my big aspiration? What kind of big thing I wanna manifest? You know, if God created me, what's my purpose? What do I have to? What do I wanna do in life? And point number one: believe God can. We serve God who created amazing things out of nothing. Why do we think He won't do the same for His church, temple, whatever? Spiritual entrepreneurs believe He will, and they see Him do it. They would agree with Henry Ford, who said, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are right. Before you dismiss this as positive thinking nonsense, some people do that even in our organization, right? People want to dismiss anything which doesn't have a religious connotation to it, as if Krishna is not the Lord and Master of everything. Before you dismiss this as positive thinking nonsense, remember, Jesus could not perform many miracles in his hometown because of people's lack of faith. Then, moments later, he walked on water and fed 5,000 because people in those communities had faith. Spiritual entrepreneurs believe God can, and they see him do it. So can you think of Prabhupada's example? When he could not do many things, he did later. Yes? Where was that? Where he was practically, stuck and couldn't do anything. Why? Because people were not taking him seriously, right? And when people around him started taking him seriously, where was that? Right here. And Prabhupada started doing amazing things because he was in the right environment. So this is really important example for us. So if we want divine powers manifested, you have to be in the right environment. You have to be surrounded by like-minded people who understand and appreciate and support you. Right? So this is secret of success number 2. Point number 3, see abundance, not scarcity. Spiritual entrepreneurs see abundance, not scarcity. Give a dying church a $10,000 and they will think they are broke and need to conserve it. Give 10,000 to a spiritual entrepreneur and he'll see it as seed money to start something big. To a dying church, 5 leaders is defeat. To a spiritual entrepreneur, it's a start. Same facts, different mindset. Attitude is everything. How much Srila Prabhupada had to start for his start?
Like 30 rupees or something.
Yeah, 40 rupees. And to be fair, he also had $20 in his pocket, right? From the sale of his books to the captain of the ship. With $20 he arrived to America. Right. And actually he speaks about it in one class. He says, I came here with 40 rupees and now I have 40 crores of rupees, right? Which is like a million times more. So, yeah, actually he left this world officially, in real terms, being multi-billionaire, right? Because everything belonged to him in ISKCON and still belongs to him. And so, yeah, Krishna sent him so much. And he started with little. And so, why? Because he was meditating on abundance rather than scarcity. How that manifested? Right here, in this little room.
What did you say? I'm sorry. He was abounding.
Abundance. Abundance means, that's we have a lot, we have plenty. Scarcity means we don't have enough.
Okay.
So he was meditating on abundance. And, someone would give him an apple, right? Just one apple. What would he do with this apple? He would cut it into small pieces and give a piece to everyone. So, because he saw it, it's Krishna's mercy. I have to share with everyone, right? Was not thinking of himself. And because he was not thinking of himself, so those people who were coming in touch with him, they would develop the same mentality, the same kind of abundance mentality, and everything was just coming. Shyam Sundar Prabhu shared amazing experience from the second place where they which they opened in the United States, which was in San Francisco, Frederick Street 56, that was 56 Frederick Street. Anyway, that they struggled to pay the rent for this place, and then they came to Srila Prabhupada, and he was saying, Srila Prabhupada, we don't know where the money will come. And Prabhupada said, don't worry, Krishna will send you. And Shyamasundar was saying, but how Krishna will send? Will it fall from the sky? Prabhupada said, yes. In America, money falls from the sky. Don't worry. And Shyamasundar couldn't say nothing. So they went out, and it was kind of windy day, and then the streets were kind of empty. There were no people. Maybe it was an early morning hour or something. And then the wind was blowing, and they saw $100 bills flying in the air. And they were like, whoa, and they started, and there was no source of that, there were no people, and they started catching this money, and they collected so much, and they came to Srila Prabhupada. They say, wow, Srila Prabhupada, really, Krishna sent so much money. We have more than enough to pay the rent. Prabhupada said, yeah, of course. I told you, Krishna will make arrangements. So this is what it does. If you have abundance mentality rather than scarcity mentality, it just manifests. Abundance manifests. And point number 4. Is it interesting?
Yes.
Everyone's enjoying it? Okay. Point number 4. Think vision first, resources second. Spiritual entrepreneurs are very comfortable with the reality that vision precedes resources. Casting a big vision or a solid on-mission vision will often lead to significant resources down the road. Waiting for big resources so you can have a vision is a recipe for death, right? Because you'll wait till you die. So, and we know how Srila Prabhupada manifested. Started with practically nothing, and in the end he had everything because he had big vision, right? And so he got big resources. Point number 5, invest in personal and team development. This is one of my favorite. Spiritual entrepreneurs aren't crazy spenders, but they see a key distinction between an expense and an investment. They realize that going to conferences, networking with other leaders, buying books, and doing whatever it takes to make themselves and their team better is an investment. Sure, there are limits, but smart spiritual entrepreneurs will often spend a minimum of 10% of all the money they receive making themselves and their team better. And so, again, Srila Prabhupada's example, he was investing in people. He was taking care of his devotees in every single respect. That and there are many examples that one devotee who was his traveling secretary, servant, Shrutakirti Prabhu, and he had his son being born, and then Srila Prabhupada immediately, took some money out of his personal donations and he gave him. And of course, it's kind of, not very typical. Srila Prabhupada, a renounced monk, and then he's giving money to a householder, and Shrutakirti Prabhu wanted to refuse. He was saying, no, Srila Prabhupada, please. But then Prabhupada said, no, this is not for you, this is for your son. So take it for him, right? And so, yeah, he was very caring, and he was really investing in his devotees. And I personally believe that investing into devotees who can do big things is the best thing we can do for the movement. That oftentimes we invest into, material things, buildings, etc., etc. But material things will not make the difference. That people make the difference, and so investing into potential leaders. This is something I'm trying to do. We started a school in Mayapur, which is Leadership Empowerment School, and we did the first year. We had first graduation. A dozen of full-time students took that course. So, of course, it was more of the part-time, but full-time, those who went through the whole training, that was a dozen. And they are working on really amazing and very, very big and ambitious projects. And it took kind of little investment. Of course, those who could pay for their own expenses, because all of the students were professionals, they did so, but there were some who were like temple devotees, and so they didn't have enough funding, so we paid for them. But the returns are amazing, that the kind of projects they started, even our faculty members couldn't believe their ambitions. But these are all doable, and I believe that even if one of those projects will work, it will change the dynamics of the movement, not only in this country, but at least on this continent. Quite serious stuff. And it took quite a relatively small investment into those people. And now they feel kind of obliged. It's interesting that we don't put any pressure on them. So it's like, we invest in you and you try. There are no obligations as such. But internally they feel that, okay, now we have to do something, and they really do it. And yeah, I mean, one project which has the biggest potential, I believe, is we call it Native Bhakti project. That one young lady, and she comes from Native American background, and she really surprised us when she shared the facts about Native American spiritual practices. I had some idea that Native Americans' practices, as everything else on this planet, somehow is linked to Vedic culture, because, as Bhagavatam describes, Krishna consciousness and Vedic culture was all over the world, right? At some point of time. And when I travel around the world and visiting different countries, I discover amazing things which are like solid proofs that yes, that Krishna consciousness and Vedic culture was all over the planet. Just the last discovery I made, completely by chance. Some of you might be wondering, who is that on this bag, right? But actually, anyone wants to guess who is it? Well, believe it or not, this is Nrsingadev. And you know how old is he? You'll never believe he's 40,000 years old. And he's not from India, he's from South Germany. And we're saying he's Nrsingadev because this is what the scientists are saying. It's not us who made things up. And this is the first object of religious worship, according to the science, on the planet Earth. And
How did they find the name? Was it written somewhere?
no, that they by the features, because he has the he has the body of the man and head and shoulders of a lion.
Oh, so they kind of took the image of that and started seeking for different deities, and then they found
No. That official name, and you can Google it, it's on Wikipedia, is Lion Man from Germany. Right? So, and Nrsingadev literally means Lion Man. And scientists, they correlate Lion Man from Germany with Nrsingadev from India. They say there must be connection. And so he was obviously the object of religious worship because he was found in a cave, and next to him were some beads and necklaces and ornaments, etc. So it was very obvious he was worshipped. And funny enough, very nearby that place where he was found, there is a German town which is called Nrisingen. And next to the cave where this Nrsingadev was found, and he's a little bit over a foot, there was another cave, and in that cave a smaller deity, smaller statue was found, and also Lion Man. And amongst the articles of worship there were flutes found. So it's quite interesting. And actually it created serious, it's a big news for the scientific community because they had no idea that there was a worship 40,000 years ago, right? According to them, it's an ice age. And so, anyway, now they're discussing. And this bag is coming from British Museum, that Lion Man was visiting British Museum, giving darshan there. So now he came back to Germany. So, and he was discovered already in 39, but then after a week from his discovery, the war started. So they couldn't do the research, but now, so many years later, they published it all and displaying him. So, yeah, anyway, that the whole country was Vedic and Krishna conscious, as scriptures say and as research shows. And it's really amazing to kind of discover more and more facts connected to it. And I think this is really important for all of you and even for the whole world, that Native American spirituality was rooted in Vedic culture and bhakti, worshipping the Supreme Lord. And this lady shared with us, because she is the daughter of very prominent spiritual leader, and she told us that Native Americans, believe it or not, had Mangal Aratik. And she comes from Lakota and Bigfoot Native American tribes. So, Mangal Aratik, japa. There is Native American japa, chanting on beads. Kirtan, deity worship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offering all the food to the deity before taking it. And this is something which really surprised me, that most of the tribes were actually vegetarian. That there were few hunters and very aggressive warrior tribes like Apaches, etc., which of course were not vegetarian. But many tribes were vegetarian, and they were farmers to the most part. And so it's quite amazing that, and we were telling her, why don't you start a project teaching American people native spirituality? Because the entire American population is really, interested in that. And if they learn about these core practices, they will take it up. And so japa, consisting of the names of the Supreme Lord in their tradition, and worshipping the deity of the Supreme Lord in their tradition, and offering the food to the deity and doing Mangala Arati, etc. Can you imagine? And then she is teaching them that. And would you think that people would be asking, but you come from native tradition, but you're chanting some other mantra, and what is your tradition, right? People would be asking that. And definitely those people who are ready would be taking up to Krishna consciousness. So it could transform this country, because I've discovered that not only those who have Native American blood, but anyone born in this country has very strong inclination towards native spirituality, because people understand this is the spirituality of the land I'm born in. And plus, genetically, many Americans, they feel, we've done a lot of injustice to natives. And if you know the history, you know what kind of genocide was going on, that, natives were slaughtered left, right, and center, and so. And they want to do something to revive the Native American spirit. Actually, I've realized after that the Avatar movie, which is like the most popular movie in the history, right? That it had biggest results in terms of box office on the planet. And actually, it is so popular. Of course, when we see the Avatar movie, and I'm sure many of you did, how many of you saw the Avatar movie? Okay, more than half of you. So when we see, blue people with tilak and flying on eagles, we see the resemblance of Vedic culture. But if you think deeper, why this movie is so popular? What is the hidden message? What is the core thing this movie promotes? It, in kind of hidden form, it tells the story of genocide of Native Americans, right? That the residents of Pandora are a resemblance of Native Americans, and Earthens are the conquerors, right? And so, so many people, the whole world is actually interested in Native American spirituality. And so, if we give people something they really interested in within the tradition of bhakti, which is the core Native American tradition, we could transform the whole world. We could make the whole world Krishna conscious or God conscious. And so, and now she's starting her YouTube channel, and amazingly enough, she's like young lady. She's just 25, but then she has. Actually, she was predicted to be a powerful spiritual leader, and she has few elders, like chiefs of really powerful tribes behind her, and they tell her, go ahead and promote spirituality. And now she starts her YouTube channel, and I think this would be like the most serious project of all our graduates came up with. And so there were a few more, but and it's just related to this point that investing in people who potentially can do amazing things is the most rewarding investment, the best investment, which gives unlimited returns. So, point number 6, believe this is bigger than them. Of all the criticism levied at spiritual entrepreneurs, the most common is often that they have big egos and it's all about them. Sometimes that's true, but most often it is not. Big vision does not automatically equal big ego. The best spiritual entrepreneurs humbly submit to God and are committed to a vision that is so much bigger than they are. Personal humility combined with big ambition for the mission fosters incredible leadership. Think about it this way. The reason we are talking about Paul 2000 years later is that Paul's work wasn't about Paul, it was about Jesus and the mission of the church. If your vision is all about you, it will die with you. True spiritual entrepreneurs know that. What was Srila Prabhupada's mission and vision? It was all about Krishna, right? That's why it lives on. It was big, and it was all about Krishna, making the whole world Krishna conscious. Point number 7, ship first, improve later. Perfectionists make terrible entrepreneurs. If you haven't shipped on your vision yet because you are waiting for ideal conditions or the perfect result, you will wait forever. People email me all the time, usually after going to a conference hosted by a large church with lots of resources, and ask whether a new building or better lighting or a movie or a move to a portable location will help them grow. I always tell them it will not. Big churches never started big. They usually started very humbly, but because they are led by spiritual entrepreneurs, those entrepreneurs at every stage made the most of whatever they had. A spiritual entrepreneur can launch a growing church in a dying building with little money. Then they make all the improvements later as facilities and resources grow. So, again, Srila Prabhupada. Literally, he was not waiting for perfect conditions. He shipped himself to the shores of America. And when that happened, on Friday the 13th, talking about not waiting for perfect circumstances, right? And yeah, nearly dying in the process. Point number 8, they are fine with ambiguity. Ask a spiritual entrepreneur how they are going to do it, and the number one answer is, I don't know, we're just going to do it. There is something powerful in that. If you have it all figured out before you launch it, your vision isn't big enough. So, did Prabhupada knew how he will make the whole world Krishna conscious? Probably not. He was hoping, but then he said that Krishna made it much more than I was hoping for, right? Point number 9, will risk it all without guarantee of success. Too many leaders hope for some kind of guarantee. Risk brings no guarantee because it's risk. Spiritual entrepreneurs are okay with that. Most spiritual entrepreneurs want to die trying. Usually they don't die trying, but the fact that they are willing to is crucial. Ironically, if a spiritual entrepreneur has a solid plan that's on mission, they usually don't fail. But you have to be willing to fail to succeed. And so, 2 heart attacks on the ship and not even going to the hospital at the arrival, just carrying on with his mission. My God, that's amazing. And yeah, inspiring New Yorkers to take it on. And New Yorkers are a really tough bunch. It's pretty hard to break New Yorker, right? So he got New Yorkers involved, and so it all started happening. So point number 10, never wait for never wait for consensus. Too many churches will only move forward if there is consensus. That's a critical mistake. Consensus kills courage. By the time you have consensus, ideas are so watered down they are worthy of the committee that put them together. You heard of the camel, right? Joke. Who is the camel? What is the camel? Camel is the horse improved by a committee. Right? Spiritual entrepreneurs rarely act alone, at least the smart ones don't, but they are ready to move ahead with a group of early adopters, knowing most will eventually buy into whatever is being proposed once they see it working. So we know how Prabhupada did that. He was trying so hard to encourage his god brothers in India to join him, to help him with the mission. He saw that, okay, it was futile, right? So he just let it go. And he worked with whoever wanted to work with him, and the rest, they could just do whatever they wanted. So he was never waiting for any guarantee, any consensus, etc. Point number 11, let the critics talk while you act. The critics will always talk. Spiritual entrepreneurs know this. They don't get weighed down by critics who criticize what others do and do little themselves. How do you respond to the critics? By acting. Just act while the critics talk. You'll accomplish something, they will not. Was Prabhupada criticized? Heavily. Right? Was he worried about it? Not at all. So that's really deep secret. Because when people criticize you, and what he was saying that if they criticize you, what is it? It is the sign of success. Means you've done something, right? That other people are jealous of. So that's why they criticize. Anyone criticizes bum lying on the street? No. Anyone criticizes powerful and influential people? Always, yeah. It's like there is a joke that it's so sad that those people who perfectly know how to run the country are unfortunately already engaged as bus drivers or workers or whoever, janitors, etc. Right? It's a joke. And point number 12 is quite startling. Break rules. Quite obviously, you should never break biblical rules or scriptural rules. And the great spiritual entrepreneurs never do. Their character is solid. But you are going to absolutely need to break some human rules if you are going to disrupt the status quo. Innovation always breaks rules. Why? Because innovation never asks for permission. It just innovates. Was Prabhupada breaking rules? Tons of rules. What was he breaking? What kind of radical innovation he was introducing, for which he was criticized? Because people were saying, oh, you're breaking rules.
It's giving Brahman initiation.
Yeah, giving, not only, like his spiritual master was breaking rules by giving Brahman initiation to those who were not born in Brahman family. Prabhupada took it so much further. He was giving sannyas to those who are, according to Vedic standards, not even human beings. Right? Yes.
also allow women to be pujaris.
Yes, allow ladies to serve deities. Yes. So many rules he broke. But then he achieved something, and his critics, they never achieved anything, right? All right. Sorry, I didn't give you much chance to share, but I just wanted to make sure that we are on time. But there are a few more minutes, and if you like to share anything on these points, you're welcome to do so. Share, ask, suggest, complain, whatever. Criticize, protest. Yeah.
Maharaj, I had a question actually.
Sure.
It seems that there's very few in the genuine spiritual entrepreneurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can we as devotees find within ourselves like the inspiration? A lot of us work, a lot of us don't have a lot of time, or maybe we don't have the ambition or the desire to actually become spiritual entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we let that grow, over time? So,
Well, my conviction is that by association, if we cannot become spiritual entrepreneurs ourselves right now by serving those who are already spiritual entrepreneurs, we can develop that mentality. My point, it all comes by association. That my point to the devotees that be a little bit more ambitious for Krishna, not for yourself, but for Krishna. And it's like if you work for a bank, work for a bank only if you want to open your own bank, right? Otherwise, don't waste your time, right? If you do small, it's gonna be just waste of time. Think big. It's better to fail doing something big, that shooting the rhino, as Prabhupada would say, than, it's better to fail doing something great than succeed doing something useless, right? So, and I think it really comes by association. And I had a really interesting example how it works, how association works. That when I was in London, and one devotee who is one of the richest men in the world, his name is Anil Agarwal, and he has spiritual name as well, Aniruddha. He's multi-billionaire, and so he's amazing devotee, really so simple and so sincere, despite of his wealth, etc. And like he invites devotees and hosts them so nicely, arranges program in his house. Always very, very generous, gives, like he invites tons of people to his house, gives everyone very generous donations at the end, etc. And loves kirtans and all. And he's really, thinking big. It's like he's investing £1 billion British pounds into Vedanta University in Jagannath Puri, as he's building that project now. And, even like reporters, they were saying, like, that's giving away so much money for charitable purposes. That's mind-blowing. But anyway, he invited us to his place, and he's been extremely, kind to me throughout all the years, always supporting and encouraging and helping financially, etc. And I just took the opportunity to thank him for everything he has done and appreciate him. And he was so humble, he couldn't even look up. He was looking in the floor, and he was saying, "Oh, I'm just a simple man," etc. I'm nothing special. And then he glorified Prabhupada, of course. And then, but then he said, I actually appreciated one thing about him, because this is what he's stressing, that do your best. Whatever you can do it for Krishna, and put your heart into it, and do your best. And then Krishna will do the rest for you. Right? If you don't do your best, don't expect Krishna to do the rest. And then he started encouraging the devotees, like, what is your big dream? What do you want to do for Krishna? Who are you? And tell something nice about a devotee next to you, and tell what do you want to do for Krishna. And then one devotee is like my friend, and he's pretty young but very successful entrepreneur himself, a millionaire. He's 26, but he has his own hedge fund, and so he has few millions. And then he picked up with him, and he said, "Okay, what do you want to do for Krishna in 10 years from now? What's your vision?" And he said, "I wanna give $100 million American dollars in 10 years to the Hare Krishna movement." Like, pleasure on the spot. And then later he said, "It's amazing, it's gonna be pretty hard for me." But when he told me, I felt really compelled to set a high goal. That's the power of association. And then he picked up on the other devotee who happened to host me in London, and he is a bank director. Young devotee, he was born in devotee family, very humble and very professional, kind of second generation leader. And he said, "Who are you, and what are you doing, and what do you want to do? What is the big thing you want to do for Krishna in 10 years from now?" And this devotee said, "Well, I'm a banker, and I'm a director of the bank, and this is what I'm doing, and I think in 10 years I want to do the same. I just want to be steady." And he said, "No, go for big thing. What kind of goal do you want to achieve in 10 years? And he said, no, I don't want to be ambitious." No, he said, "You have to be ambitious." And then, I told that devotee, if you want to get off the hook, then, I'll help you. You tell him that in 10 years from now, you want to have your own Krishna conscious bank. Then he'll let you go. He said, okay. In 10 years, I want to have my own Krishna conscious bank. He said, "Okay, very good, thumbs up." So he moved on. But then later we spoke with this devotee, and I told him it's actually not a bad idea, because he actually shared with me, he's really smart, and he's making millions of pounds for the bank. But then, of course, he's getting something, but it's comparing to what he's producing, that's peanuts. And I was saying that, you are so smart, and other people, who know how to do it, they open their own banks. Why can't you do that? And why can't you use everything for Krishna rather than, getting little salary and using that for Krishna? Why don't you use the whole thing for Krishna and facilitate the devotees, etc.? So many things you could do if you have your own bank. And he said, it's really true. Let me think about it. I said, yeah, of course. Don't you have enough brain to start your own bank? Go for it. And I was thinking, like, they would never think about these things, but because this devotee pushed them, and because he's doing really big, and so he pushed them, and so they started thinking big. So I think this is how it works, through association. So if we associate and support someone and work with someone who has that spirit, it's contagious. We can get infected in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.